We're gonna look into what's happening in Poland though again.
Hey Jake, well, I mean, this is just a one-street town, very close to the Ukrainian or the Polish border with Ukraine. You can see it's very late at night here. It's pitch black. It's freezing cold, and the police have sealed off the road which leads to that location where that apparent rocket strike.
You said last time they were in a death spiral, we got Trump. Yeah, exactly. Trump saved the Republican Party, like dramatically improved the Republican Party's chances. He fucking killed it.
Covering this have not yet arrived. I've managed to speak to a few of the local residents. There's a school just 200 yards or so away from where this strike took place.
What is that? Don't send me dumb shit like that.
Told me it took place around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, local time. It is kind of more like 10 o'clock at night here now. She said she felt this enormous explosion. The windows rattled in the school building, and that's of course as a result of the big explosion that took place.
Stop doing
locals saying that 2 farm workers were killed in that explosion. It hasn't been determined yet, of course, that these were Russian rockets. The Russians have denied it. They've said this is a provocation, the suggestion that they would have attacked Polish territory. But you have to remember that these rockets or these explosions took place at a time when Ukraine, just across the border, 4 or 5 miles away, was being showered with more than 80 rockets from Russia into various locations. And so it's easy to imagine how some of those rockets, a couple of them, could have strayed just across the border, Jake.
That's right. Matthew Chance at the site of the missile strike in Poland. Thank you so much. We turn now for reaction. CNN's Sam Kiley is in central Ukraine for us. Sam, what are you hearing from Ukrainian officials about this shocking missile strike just over the border in Poland?
Well, here in Kryvyi Rih, you can probably hear the air raid sirens going off once again at the end of a day that, as Matthew has said, saw Ukraine being showered with cruise missiles and other missiles right across the country. 7 million people in this country being left without power. President Zelensky calling this an example of a continued example of Russian terror, saying outright that he believed that he said outright that 2 Russian rockets had hit Poland, and that was part of the inevitable side effects or consequences of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. He also observed, of course, that Moldova was suffering power outages as a consequence of a natural disconnection between the services of Moldova and Ukraine. But things have been pretty devastating across this country with these attacks on critical national infrastructure, the electrical supplies, residential buildings hit in Kiev with 2 Ukrainians at least killed there. A very significant level of airstrikes, all coming just a few days effectively after the Russians lost Kherson, and after at the G20 the Russians were told in no uncertain terms the terms of engagement that the Ukrainians would be prepared to engage in, Jake.
All right, Sam Kiley in Ukraine, thank you so much. Let's bring in CNN's Phil Mattingly, who's at the high-stakes G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. Phil, what are you hearing from the U.S. and other world leaders there after these reports of missile strikes within Poland's borders, the Ukrainians blaming Russia?
Bro, I don't know what the fuck happened in Istanbul. Stop fucking sending me breaking news of a fucking car bomb, okay? God damn it. Türkler, when breaking news like this happens, I don't cover it immediately. Holy fuck, dude. Jesus Christ. Shut the fuck up.
Of a potential strike or some kind of strike in Poland for the last several hours. Now, at this point, White House officials are saying they have no confirmation as to the origin of that strike or the exact details. However, they are in conversations with the Polish government, as you noted, that had been in the midst of an emergency meeting. U.S. intelligence is also engaged on this as well, trying to figure out exactly what happened before weighing in both on the president's response and the next steps for the U.S. One thing to keep in mind here at this G20 summit, The war in Ukraine and Russia's invasion of Ukraine has really been the backdrop of almost everything that world leaders have been discussing, including a furious effort diplomatically by U.S. officials to rally as many countries as possible to sign on to a declaration condemning the war in Ukraine. Whether it was about food shortages, electricity, this has been kind of at the center of all of the discussions here in Bali. One thing else to note, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, did not come to Bali. He did send his foreign secretary or his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. Lavrov was in the room giving his own speech, which reflected many of President Putin's largely false talking points over the course of the day yesterday. But he has since departed, according to a U.S. official. There is still a Russian delegation here on the ground. One thing, as you noted, to keep in mind, President Biden has been unequivocal about the commitment to Article 5. President Biden visited Poland in March, visited U.S. troops in March while he was there. They are on the front lines defending a NATO country. What happens next is extremely critical, extremely high stakes, but U.S. officials making it clear they want to make sure they know everything.
Is there an English translation, live translation for the Polish news conference?
20 summit. Thank you so much. Let's bring in CNN Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto, CNN Global Affairs Analyst Susan Glasser, and the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Philip Breedlove. Jim, let me start with you. U.S. officials still have not determined whose missile this was, if it was intentional, if it was in fact a Russian attack. What are your sources telling you?
I've spoken with a U.S. military official, with a senior NATO official, as well as with a member of the House Intelligence Committee, and all of them are urging caution at this point because they don't have a final answer. It is significant, any strike, particularly one that is deadly on the territory of a NATO member, but they don't know the circumstances of this strike. The possibilities include a Russian missile, either deliberate or potentially off target, the possibility of a Russian missile that was struck by Ukrainian air defense, or even the possibility that this was a Ukrainian air defense missile fired at a Russian missile. The timing of this is key. Of course, it took place during a large Russian missile strike across the Ukrainian territory, including on the western part of the country, just across that border from Poland. But at this point, fact is they just don't know. And until they know those details, they will not then decide how they respond. I will say this. I spoke to a U.S. lawmaker who said to me that he is surprised this hasn't happened yet, given the number of missiles that Russia has fired at Ukrainian territory since the start of its invasion in February.
Bro, the fucking video you literally sent me in Istanbul, the guy literally says in Turkish, I don't know if you speak Turkish or not, does anyone know why this car is on fire in Fatih? Okay? So even the fucking breaking news guy doesn't know why the fuck it's happening, and you want me to cover it. Like, I don't know what that is, dude.
Matter when invoking Article 5 of NATO's treaty? Does it matter if it was an intentional attack on Poland or not?
Well, first, I would offer that Article 5 is not the logical or normally the next step. The next step would be Article 4. This is in the hands of Poland now to bring this in an Article 4 meeting to the NAC to decide how to proceed. It's very rare that we would jump straight to an Article 5. And Article 4 would involve those conversations like you've just been having with your other guests. Do we believe it was deliberate? Was it a misfire? And I would offer that as many missiles has been fired at Ukraine in just the last, half a day, this may have been a part of that volley, and it may have been a misfire. But in any case, it is clear, and I think we will find out, that a Russian missile went into Poland and killed some people. And now NATO will begin its deliberation.
And Susan, how do you see this playing out? Let's assume once again that this was not an intentional attack on Poland, given the fact that there are no, as far as I know, and according to a Ukrainian official I was talking to, no military or strategic targets in this part of Poland, in this rural part of eastern Poland. What happens now, do you think?
Well, Jake, look, at a minimum, it underscores, and I think it will reinforce the desire of Ukraine supporters in NATO and the United States, which there are many, to keep up the pressure to supply more air defense to Ukraine and to bolster their fight against Russia even more. It certainly has an alienating quality, if nothing else. I also think it reinforces the extreme high risk of the situation. In many ways, it is a surprise that it hasn't happen sooner. But to the point about what's a target, remember that this barrage today, the largest yet, according to Ukrainian officials, by Russia against Ukraine. These are civilian targets that they're hitting. This is a civilian population. It's not like they were looking for a military target in Lviv and just missed. This is a campaign of terror by the Russian military against the Ukraine people. Just happened that it appears that some Polish people also got caught up in it today.
And General Breedlove, there are currently 10,000 U.S. service members stationed in Poland as part of a NATO coalition, as according to the State Department. Take us inside those ranks right now, as a former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. What preparations, if any, could be happening?
Well, those forward-based forces are already at sort of an increased posture to be ready and to defend and think about their own defense. But this could cause us to step up that level of self-preparedness inside of Poland. And my guess is that we will now see some increased ask for NATO air defenses along Polish border, Romanian border, others that are apart or close to these barrages that were just mentioned. And let me just join those.
Yeah, we'll just like send more weapon systems to NATO allies. There you go. And that's it. That's how you do it. It's just like, I told you, this war is about money. War is about profits. Profits for the military industrial complex. War is not about like a genuine defense for human beings. That's peace. That's a different thing. You know what I mean? Memo 5891. Thank you for the 25. Get the subs. Yeah, they'll give more weapon systems to like Poland and stuff. They will they will probably give more money to the Ukrainians. I didn't know Ukrainians aren't human beings, Hasan. Wait, what? Some of you just don't have enough processing power to be online, I think. Like, you're one of those people. Like, what the fuck are you talking? I never said that. Like, you're just... Why? Why are you guys like this? You literally will be like, I'll be like, yo, dude, war in and of itself is about the profits of the military industrial complex, like I just said. And some of you motherfuckers' processing power is so limited, dude. You just literally, you're like, why do you want every Ukrainian to get fucking murdered, dude?
Just days after those scenes of jubilation in the liberation of Kherson, Russia suffered a very embarrassing defeat when it was forced to withdraw its forces across the Dnieper River and leave Kherson. And I think that the Putin response here is escalation. And again, this is him saying, I'm going to change the subject. I'm not backing away, and I will meet defeats with further risky behavior.
General Breedlove, do you agree?
I do. And I would also like to pile on something that was said just a few minutes earlier. We know that Russia is dipping now into less capable munitions because they fired most of their most accurate and capable munitions earlier in this war. And so as a part of this big barrage that was unleashed today, it would not surprise me if we have an errant missile. But clearly, I completely agree with this is an attempt to change the narrative. Russia is losing in the South, and they don't want that to be the story, especially as their own people are beginning to hear the stories.
Yeah. General Philip Breedlove, Jim Sciutto, Susan Glasser, thanks to one and all of you. Appreciate it. Coming up next, we'll get reaction to this strike from the top Democrat on the House.
Okay. Here's the summary from BNO. Summary of the Polish government's press conference. There was an explosion in which 2 Polish citizens were killed. The cause being investigated. Military readiness is being raised across the country, and they're considering to invoke NATO's Article 4 consultation, which is to determine whether or not this was like territorial expansion. BNO is not reliable, but, that's what. Yes, war is a way for the military industrial complex to earn money, but with Russia going into Ukraine, killing thousands in literal genocide and threatening everyone else, supporting the Ukrainian military is a must. both of these things could be correct at the same time. Like, I think Ukrainians do have a right to emancipation and a right to defend themselves. But like, don't act like America is doing it out of the kindness of their fucking hearts. Okay? Because the intentions behind America's actions are important to recognize so that you don't get lost in the sauce and get caught with your pants down, basically. Right? Where you're like, wait a minute. Like, what the fuck? Why is America not doing this thing? It's not a question that you if you want to ask that question all the time and be confused as to why, for example, the United States of America is not fucking, invoking Article 5 or whatever, you can continue feeling like America has, at its heart, at its core, a sense of decency and morality. And that's why they're sending weapons into Ukraine. Sure. But it will always lead to you going, why aren't we defending Ukraine more then? All right. It's not even necessarily that they're risking American lives. They're risking everyone's lives.